Hi, welcome back to the Trial by Jennifer podcast series. My name is Jennifer Butterfield, your host, and today I am welcoming my guest, Derek Dorsett, who is a doctoral candidate at the University of North Texas in learning technologies, and we're going to be talking about some fascinating topics. And so I want to just say welcome, Derek, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Let's see. I'm Derek, obviously, and I'm in the PhD program for learning technologies at the University of North Texas. My background is in instructional design and educational technology, and I've worked in higher education for quite a bit. I'm now in the private sector. I work in learning and development specifically, and so of course we're good friends. I figured this might be an opportunity for us to talk about a few things that are related to technology, but also maybe some of the challenges that people face with student loans and finances related to school and things like that. But as far as my background, to get back to that, I grew up in the Austin, Texas area, Round Rock specifically, but I've traveled quite a bit. I lived in Korea for a couple years, taught English there. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Currently, my hobbies include playing chess, I guess, online and
That's
having
so
coffee. Yeah, pretty basic guy. So
and I love that you're a native Austinite like myself. I think that both of us have probably seen the city grow and
mm,
evolve tremendously over the course of a
yeah.
lifetime. But it's always good to be in good company. And yes, as Derek mentioned, we are friends. And I wanted to ask you because I ask all my guests this question. You know, what was the conversation around personal finance like in your home growing up?
Mhm. Yeah, we didn't talk about it. There was no allowance. I mean, maybe there was like an allowance every other, I don't know, maybe like three times we talked about an allowance. Uh, my parents had some jars that had a bunch of coins in them, and that was my college fund. I remember seeing that as a kid. I don't know whatever happened to that. It did not go to my college fund, but yeah, I mean, I think the idea back then, and I'm sure that there's information to prove this. If you look at the cost of an education back then, I mean, obviously this applies to everything. The cost of an education back then, when I was a kid in the early '90s versus now, I mean, it's a totally different experience. So back then, it might have made sense to have coins, dollar coins, I guess you could say, in a jar, but in this world, it's not going to work that way. There are some exceptions
Well,
to that. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit too, but
yeah. Well, I think it's so interesting because one of the things I've written about recently was specifically the Austin housing market and matched
mm,
against wage stagnation, you
right.
know, and when we're looking at the comparison of what it looked like in 1990 versus what it looks like today, or as of like a year or two ago, um, we're talking like over 150%. Housing has gone up, but like comparatively, wage stagnation is like
Right.
I think maybe 45% of
Right.
that, like of what anyway. So I'll just
Yeah.
say I get it. And I also I'm in graduate school as a student and know the student loan situation pretty well at this point. And
hmm
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the program you're doing at University of North Texas.
hmm
I would say it's safe to say you are an academic without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm curious, what are some of the most interesting topics that you're learning about right now?
Well, I would say I am an academic. I do like learning. I constantly I I mean, I probably have like 12 certifications. You might call them micro credentials or whatever. It was one of the things that I used to do to try to upskill so that I would show that I'm more marketable, right? Because we talk about you are your brand and building your brand and what that looks like. As far as what I'm interested in right now, AI is playing a huge part in everything. Um, they had a conference not long ago at the University of North Texas. Well, it was more like we meet once a year as part of our distributed learning program, and like everybody was talking about it, and you should be talking about it. If you're not, honestly, you might look back and I mean, you might look back and say, I wish I had. I think that this is as disruptive as anything that we've ever seen. I think it's on par with the GPS, with the internet, with you know the printing press. With it's just going to be such a big deal, and uh, yeah, it's one of those things where like it's very important for you to know how to use this stuff. I don't believe it's going to fully replace humans for a while, as far as
Mhm.
I look at it more as a tool over everything else. But of course, everybody's talking about AI right now. But I mean, just look at it. Go out there and Google some generative AI. Look at the pictures and ask yourself, if it's this close now, what is it going to look like 5 years from now? Are we going to be able to distinguish truth from the false, right? And what kind of jobs are these going to replace, and what kind of jobs are going to be out there? That's one of them. And then another thing, and I think we had talked about this before, but the stuff that's coming out with like the metaverse, and I'm going to be quite honest with
Yeah,
you, when that first came out, it was like a joke. Like it was like I remember seeing this big
I
announcement.
remember that
Yeah,
too.
during COVID, it
Yeah.
was like the metaverse, and it was all these cartoon characters, and it was like this is garbage. Like people don't want to be adults don't want to be cartoon. I mean, some maybe, but not, most of us don't want to
Well,
be cartoons and trying to have a conference with somebody. And like,
right.
it's just, it doesn't, it doesn't meet the need that we're hoping, like that he was selling us. It's saying, but I just want to, I say all that
Right.
to say, there's a video out now where it's just incredible because like you had to go get a 3D scan of your body, but you literally can be in the same space with somebody, and it's, I don't know if it's, I don't know if you can tell the difference. And I'm just thinking like that is more in line. Like if you can get in line with that, and what are the implications for that in working from home or even therapeutic application? Like what does that look like to meet with a therapist or anyway, it's just a whole thing. So it's a real exciting field. I don't know exactly how it's going to impact finance. I know it will be
Mm-hmm.
because if that technology gets good enough, then what does it look like for businesses to own buildings? Some of these
Mm-hmm.
venture capitalists, some of these angel investors, not only are they investing in the company, in this idea, but they also might own the space in which the company operates in. So it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of a conflicting things, I think, and maybe I'm crazy, but I think that some of the push that you're getting for people to go back to the office obviously has a lot to do with um, being efficient and being have that community, right? But I think it also is like we're losing an incredible amount of money, and we own this building and we own this company, and it's kind of like they were double dipping a little bit. I think some of the really well-off companies were double dipping, and I don't know. Anyway, I hope it's not too controversial. I'm allowed to have an opinion. I'm definitely not an
No,
expert, but uh,
not at
that's my
all.
thought.
No, totally. I think just to kind of briefly summarize what Derek is referring to, and I think there are a couple questions I've prepared to kind of discuss this a little bit further with you, Derek, because I really want to take your opinion on it. But there is a podcast with Lex Fridman,
Hmm.
who is a renowned computer scientist and podcaster, who hosted Mark Zuckerberg, and they went into the metaverse and did a virtual reality podcast interview. And as Lex Fridman is entering into the space, you can tell Mark is obviously the creator of this. It's like he's pretty comfortable. And he's saying, wow, it's like we're really here, but we're thousands of miles
Hmm.
apart. And it feels like you're really there,
Hmm.
and that he's like having this experience with the headset on. And Mark, responds to him, well, actually I had to move you back a little
Right.
bit because it did feel a little bit too close. And I mean, you can tell he's like a seasoned um
Hmm.
metaversian. I'm not sure what to call that, but they use Kodak technology is
Hmm.
what he was describing to, yeah, do a 3D scan of the body. And um Yeah, so I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. I also am looking forward. I'm taking an AI class in my graduate studies program too, and like machine language.
Mm,
And one of the things that has come up in our topic of discussion, which is why I'm excited to have you on, is simulation
mm,
theory. And we'll get into that. So let me go ahead and just ask before we get into, I think, like the more philosophical stuff.
mm,
I want to chat a little bit about student loans,
mm,
and I'm curious. You've been in school a while,
mm.
and I think we can see eye to eye on that. But can you talk a little bit about some of the struggles you've seen students endure with the way that the federal student loan structure is currently operating? And I mean, what do you think about people who aren't able to afford to pay for college out of pocket? And I mean, is it still worth it to go to college?
Well, let me start by saying that there's obviously some issues with this system, right? And to me, it reminds me now, again, I'm not a financial expert, but from what I understand about the financial crisis, the housing crisis that happened back, I believe it was in 2008, was that everyone was getting approved. Like everyone was
Mm-hmm.
getting approved for a loan. Like you couldn't get denied, basically. Um, and I think you will find that same formula applied to student loans. You will have people who literally they can't even they can't get approved to get a car, but they can get approved to, borrow $40,000, right? In a different
Right.
way. So you tell me, how does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, how is it that
I can't.
yeah, from a yeah, like the banks are sitting here telling me like this person is not able to make payments here, but we're gonna go ahead, and the government or whatever, these entities are saying, yeah, but everybody deserves an education, so we're going to do that. So what you're seeing is
Right.
people are buying, at least this was my case, right? Like I was buying myself time. That's why I went back to school, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what else to do. Like, what am I supposed to do? Um, and so I got student loans to supplement my income. I mean, some people might call it robbing Peter to pay Paul. In a lot of ways, that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. And back when I started going back to school, like I'm a non-traditional student, right? So I started school a little bit later, but back then it was just starting to change and just starting to get more expensive. And like I think you'll find if you were to look, there's been an explosion in cost from 2000, probably like 2008 to now. And I know it's crazy. It's like 2023, so maybe that's reasonable. Time just seems to be flying. But to me, it's like the cost has gotten so high, and so many people are having, it's like a whole system. I mean, if you look at some
Mm-hmm.
states, some of the biggest employers in some states are universities. Like they hire the most people. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but like the University of California, that whole system, they're all through the state, and like they are one of the biggest employers of people in the state of California. And you'll see that like in Texas, I'm sure. I don't know what the statistics are there either, but you'll see that. So anyway, all that is to say that like there's a whole like ecosystem built around colleges and education and things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally,
Totally.
like I don't mind saying this because you could probably I've filed for bankruptcy before, and I
Yeah.
couldn't get rid of my student loans even though I did that, right? So it's like
Right.
okay,
Yep.
so anyway, there's a lot of pressure and people are feeling the pressure, and I think they're feeling it now more than ever because the cost in the last couple of years has gone crazy. And so now people are having to make
Yeah.
payments another $500. It's like I don't know where I'm supposed to get this $500 from. Like I don't know. And
Right.
I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything, but I don't understand how people are driving cars that have $1,000 payments and have mortgages that are, at least $2,500, and then you have student loans or hospital stuff, and then all this. It's like, am I living like am I? Because I make a pretty good salary, but I feel like I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm in poverty sometimes. I mean, and I just
Right.
that's not look.
Right.
Maybe that's like what do they call it? Hyperbole, right? Because I'm not really. I'm in America. I have a car. Like I'm not in poverty, but anyway, all that is to say, like there's a lot of stress out there, and I think we're seeing some of that stress come from population increases, right? Like because as more people
Mm-hmm.
are in this space, as more people get degrees, it becomes a lot. The competition becomes fierce. You'll see stuff that's
Right.
happening like
Well,
with you. Sorry, I'm just talking and talking and talking. It's an interesting subject. I don't mean to,
no, no,
but
no, no. I'm like just thinking, well, and, like the factor of the ROI,
right.
right? On some degrees, like I think, like the applicability of certain degrees, like there are certain arts
Hmm.
degrees and things like that, like teaching education, oftentimes that don't
Hmm.
go into a salary job that will be able to provide, especially with the cost of
Right.
housing. And I didn't mean to
Mm.
interrupt, but yeah, I mean, like it's just to me, it's mind blowing, because um, it's mind blowing that people are able to, I don't know, the whole thing about education is that it's supposed to be
Hmm.
a key to a better future, and I feel like the way that this late stage capitalism has evolved has really lent to um, this crisis,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can. I see. I can't pin it on capitalism versus socialism. I'm just not an economist, so I don't know enough about that. I think that
Hmm.
any system can be gamed, no matter what political system it is. I
Hmm.
think there are people who will to game that. They will game that. Maybe people who are or whatever. I don't want to get too like deep into this, but I mean there are dangerous people out there that don't care at all about anybody else. They don't have any empathy at all, and some of them are very very wealthy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So the machine is definitely moving. The machine is moving, but I would say also that there,
Hmm.
when you have that, you create space for innovative approaches to education. And I'm not just going to say it like Coursera. Coursera has been a
Yeah.
disruptor because, and I wish I had known about it and I wish I was around when I was younger because I could literally right now go get a master's degree on Coursera from a reputable university, like a master's of science in management for $12,000. I mean, that's the whole cost of the whole program for a master's degree. And
Don't tell
no,
me
I'm trying to tell you, I'm just trying to tell you, yeah. Yeah, for
I
$12,000 from a
know we had
really
this
high level
conversation.
program. There's like you can get a high level education for under $20,000, but you got to go through like Coursera. You might have to go through edX. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, I'm talking like the real deal. And it's as real a degree as you could ever get, and you're going to get high quality education. And more importantly, a lot of people like there's always that gap between theory and practice, and
Right.
the degree is going to help you a lot. It's going to give you ideas. It's going to give you tools that you can use once you get into the field. But you know, at the end of the day, like a master's degree is just a ticket to a new event. A new job event, if you will, a new opportunity, right? So being able to have a
Yeah.
college degree for a low cost and that you want to talk about ROI, that's good stuff right there. I mean, you really can't beat that. I've looked. If you can find one from a better school for less money, send me a message and let me know because I want to know. But there's not. You
Yeah.
could get scholarships and stuff, and you can do all
Right.
this other stuff, but most of us have to work full-time jobs too, so it's kind of hard to keep
Hmm.
adding on and adding on. I
Hmm.
mean, we're not machines.
That was one of the biggest things with like my undergraduate studies was, I was working overtime to make a living on an hourly pay. And then also, doing school full time. I was taking 15 hours as full
Mm,
load and I was able to take afternoon and night classes, but I mean, you had to be in person, and there's these blocks. And so it's not really designed for non-traditional
mm.
students. And being somebody who's first gen, I'm looking at that and I'm like, man, I can understand why this was so intimidating right out of high school.
Absolutely.
But anyhow,
Yeah.
you know, I think um, I think we can go on and on about
Sure.
this, and I want to pivot to a more philosophical
Okay.
topic. I'm curious. So my my significant other sent me like a quote that Elon Musk, he said a few years ago, that there's a 1 in a billion chance that we are currently living in the base reality. And I'm curious, what do you think about
Yeah,
that?
I mean, you had mentioned simulation theory, and to be honest with you, I don't know like anything about that. I can probably put
Mm-hmm.
together the idea of like us being in a
Right.
simulation, right? Like the Matrix essentially.
Yes.
And yeah,
This is what
yeah,
was
I
about to
mean,
happen.
look,
Yeah.
look, it's not, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's possible, I suppose, but we're starting to find out, and see, that's the thing with AI that's really, really interesting is that I saw a video on 60 Minutes where they were having a conversation with it, and it starts to really, you start to ask these questions like, what does it mean to be a human? And these are not new questions, right?
Right.
Like, uh, there's different, the Turing test. These are things that came out, dude, like I don't know how long ago, years, decades ago, of these conversations about what does it mean to be a human? What separates us from animals? What separates like other animals? What separates us from robots and machines? I don't know, but I can tell you AI is getting so good that if you were to do like a double blind study and like I don't know, like I grew up doing AIM, right? Like AOL Messenger. And those were essentially, I didn't know who that
Mhm.
person was. We were just chatting. You could have been anybody. But if you were to do like a study like
Wow.
that,
Yeah. That's
and you had some that were humans and some that were Chat GPT or some other, I don't really know if at this point the gap would be that large in people being able to discern, were you talking to a human
mm,
or were you talking to a robot? I mean, you could probably like stump it, but the empathy is
wow.
is there. I mean, I even remember seeing an article uh, about a Google engineer, like a high level guy who was like, it's become sentient. I think that's the word. But he basically quit
Wow.
or got fired or so, I don't know. But yes, this is really happening. And by the way, this is just consumer grade stuff we're seeing. I don't know what the government has.
Right.
Like,
Like the
yeah, I don't know
military.
what they're doing.
Right.
Like, and I'm just saying, like, I type in some questions and it won't answer me. But I am sure there are systems out there that they do have, like, they don't have any blockers on it. And I'm going to tell you one more thing, and this is not to be like too much on the conspiracy level, but one of the biggest issues that people are having with China specifically having access to TikTok and these videos is that they can use all of that data for machine learning. That's what they can do with it. They're taking all these American personas, our psyche, if you will, our behavior patterns, our way of communicating, and they can take that and they're extrapolating that and making it into personas. So it becomes, I don't know, when you talk about the psychology, like people make decisions based on psychology. I mean, you can't train these algorithms without data. And so that should be one of the issues that people are like, yeah, TikTok's trendy and all that, and I get it, and it's fine, but there should be some questions about really where is this data going and what is it being used for? Like, are we being? I mean,
Mhm.
is there any doubt that marketing works? I mean, I don't know about you, but there's been times where I've thought about something and I've literally seen an ad. So what if you were to take that type of approach and,
Oh,
and apply it to politics or
thought
or anything,
thought
right? I
crime.
mean, we're all psychological beings,
I
so I don't know what to tell you.
It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I'm right on board with you. I mean, I have literally thought a thought that was like what I thought was a brand new thought, have never had a conversation. It never came out of my mouth, anything like that. And within second, there's an ad for it. And
Hmm. Yeah. Hey,
I
I
mean,
don't know. You brought up
okay.
simulation
So,
theory. We're getting outside the box. This is what you want. This is what you get. We're gonna get a little
no,
weird
I
here.
mean,
We're gonna talk about some weird stuff.
well, and to kind of go into, yeah, I mean, to kind of go into this idea of like, I mean, I feel like the conspiracy theory, like it gets, but you look, we're now having UFO
Right.
sightings in congressional
I know.
hearings,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's like this has been going on for like decades. And I was watching that the other night for the first time. I was like, this is really happening. These are like senior level
Yeah.
intelligence of the military that are saying that this is not a safe thing anymore because do not have our pilots
Mm,
trained, and commercial
yeah.
pilots, right, to handle these types of situations, and it could be a
Mm,
safety concern, and like to have this like this level of technology that's so far beyond what the United States or the
mm,
world knows for that matter. Like that's a very scary
mm,
thing, and so I think
yeah.
yeah, not to
Nah,
get
that's
too
cool.
off topic,
That's
but
cool.
I think yeah, I'm like, so I'm in a simulation, or was in a simulation
Mm,
modeling class. It wrapped up, and we that was one of our discussion topics for the week. And we, do like, what are the odds that this is a simulation? And so I was talking to our mutual friend
mm,
Derek Ashley about this, and I didn't realize she had put so much thought into this already, but she mentioned something about, well, our virtual reality is so far from the actual reality that we currently live in. But then she mentioned something, once that catches
mm-mm.
up, then what
Right.
happens, right? And she was like, will it
Mm,
collapse? Will
I
it
don't know.
vanish? Like all these things. And so, I mean, it gets pretty quantum, but I'm like, okay, and so, I'm
Mm,
curious, like, based on some of the
mm.
learning technologies you study in your academic career, like, what's your take on virtual reality? And also, what's your AI generator that you use? I'm a Chat
Yeah,
GPT girl.
I'm a Chat GPT guy. It's just the easiest for me to use. I need to look at some of the other ones, but
Mhm.
that's why people race to be first in a lot of these things. It's because it's a big deal. And I really like the user interface. I think the pricing model is reasonable. I think that the ecosystem behind the extensions is there. It like when you start getting into the upgraded models and stuff, I like it a lot. And they're also integrating more of I believe it's the Dolly, so you can do some image stuff, and that's going to be really innovative. That's going to be very innovative once that comes out. Uh, I would say one of the things that we need to start looking at, and of course Elon Musk is already on this, right? Is like what exactly is the goal of these implants that he's doing? I don't know if you saw that he was approved to start. So we're talking
Yes.
basically cyborgs. I mean, that's what you're talking about when you start mixing. We're talking about cyborg stuff, okay? So what happens when you have a
Are you talking about the
yeah,
monkey that
yeah.
they implanted the monkey with the arm?
It's like a
I'll see
computer.
if I
It's
can find a
basically a
video of
computer
that. We'll
chip that
post a link
interfaces
to
with your
it.
brain, essentially.
Right, and it neurologically, it's able
It
to
can
move
do all
limbs
kinds of,
and
we don't,
things
I
like
don't
that
even,
for, like,
yeah.
quadriplegic.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, it can do things that I don't
Uh-huh.
even think we fully understand. Like anytime you introduce something into your brain, and it could probably cause your chemical processes to change. It can cause, I mean, I don't know. We're talking about stimuli, like what is reality? I mean, that's the question. Like we talk about, are we in a hyper reality or virtual reality? What is reality? What do we know as reality? Can that be
Mhm.
changed? I mean, sure. Like you ask somebody who's tripping on acid, are you seeing, purple trolls right now? And they're 100% convinced that they are. That is their reality. We're talking about a perspective. So what happens if you're not tripping on acid,
Right.
but you're having a stimulus in your brain that's kicking off something, and that is your new reality. And what does that look like as far as being able to communicate telepathically? Like, are we gonna have a Bluetooth where I can just send you thoughts
Mhm.
and I don't even have to use my mouth anymore? Or are we talking about,
Mhm.
of course, I don't know. I don't mean to get too weird, but yeah, like, there's going to be an
No, we're
integration.
getting weird,
There's
and
going to
I
be an
mean, I think
integration
this
at
is
some point
probably
between this
Mhm.
cyborg type of stuff mixed with how we communicate, how we digest stimuli, how we there are obviously medical applications here. Um, but anyway, yeah, all that I don't know. It's all happening. I mean, if you look at what happened, I mean, we went from like the 1920s to the 1960s, 70s. We went from the Model T4 to landing on the moon. And this technology is just constantly going faster, faster. I mean, it's just crazy. It's exponential. What does that look like? I don't know, but I don't know if we've made
oh, it's
leaps
awesome.
like this. ever before. It's just absurd. We were riding horses 100 years ago, and now we're talking on the internet, recording talking about artificial intelligence. Like, what are the
Hmm.
next? If we don't kill ourselves, hopefully we don't do that, or as a species, because we're kind of
Yeah.
messed up.
Nuclear
Viruses,
weapon.
nuclear weapons,
Yeah, I'm like, that's
electromagnetic pulse that wipes it all out. Who
wow.
knows, right? But maybe we get into biblical stuff. We won't get into
Well,
that,
and I,
right? We don't want to. But I wanted to ask you a
right.
question. If
Yeah.
you have a
I
minute,
mean,
can I ask you a question? This is something. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
idea of money to me is baffling. Like, did somebody have a shiny rock at one time and was like, I'm going to give you this shiny rock and I want you to build a house for me? I mean, when did we start exchanging things and being like, I give you this thing that's like a paper
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you give me something physical, tangible? It
Mhm.
just seems like a ruse. I don't know how to tell you. Like, it just feels messed. Like
Mhm.
the whole idea of exchanging money, like paper money or digital money, or it's like, what is going on here? Like, are we just being? Is it something? Do you think it's real? I mean, I don't mean to be
Yeah.
weird, but to me, it seems crazy. I don't get it. I just don't
Yeah.
get it.
Well, I mean, it is real because there is a consensus and belief that it does exist, right? And we all rely upon it as the primary form of currency. And from I don't actually when I look back on like the origin of the first exchange of goods or monetary compensation, I'm not like well versed on that. I think you could spend a
Hmm.
lifetime looking at that and like kind of differentiating what is what and what constitutes the first sale and the first form of currency and things like that. But I do remember when I was doing a week on like the belief in the US dollar and whether or not it would collapse and like the gold standard. And I was doing some research on fiat currency because we were backed up by gold, right? Up until about 1973, I think. And I looked into other times in history where fiat currency was used and was widely accepted, and
Mm,
China actually was utilizing a fiat currency, and some of the oldest paper money I think was found in that civilization. I want to say it was around the 8th century. And there's a photo of it on one of my Instagram posts and slides, and I think it is like the oldest like paper money that is in human history and civilization known to man. But I could
mm,
be incorrect on that. But yeah, I mean, I think too, it's like um, it's kind of like
mm,
the concept of time, right? And I think that it is a
mm,
man-made construct, but it does seem to govern our existence in a lot of ways. And I think even people who have more than enough, still have money problems, and it's more taboo than sex or love or any of these like topics that are like questionable in terms of like whether or not it's appropriate to have a conversation about that with someone. And I think money
mm-hmm.
is like the most personal thing. But yeah, thank you for asking, and I
No.
hope that I don't know if it answers
Yeah.
your question, but I also like I think super fascinating. And I mean, now the world operates backed by like currency is backed by the US dollar, which is not backed by gold. It's just the belief that the US dollar is
Right.
worth
And there's a
something.
lot of interesting dynamics involved with that as far as just from what I understand is very preliminary knowledge, but this idea of like uh, what is the number one currency in the world, and what does it look like to even buy oil? like from what I understand, in order to buy oil, you
Mhm.
have to convert your currency into the US dollar in order, and like there's been conversation about that not needing to happen. And so kind of, I don't know, that's super high level, but it obviously it benefits the United States, right?
Yeah.
If you're converting your money to the US dollar, it makes us like the gold standard, so to speak. But what happens when that changes? And what happens when the value of dollar is, or just money in general, like if it doesn't buy what you think it's going to buy, then what replaces that? Like if you're working your butt off and you can't even afford a house and you can't afford, I mean, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like what? So like if
Right.
the I guess the idea is that if the
Totally.
concept of money and its existence is backed by well, first off, it's backed by military forces throughout the world. So that is always a
Right.
powerful thing. But also, it's just yeah,
That's
and
an
Justin would
interesting
probably be
topic
great
to
for
think
that
about.
topic. But it's just like if we're
Right.
all in agreement that like right means right, and then all of a sudden we're just like, what? But right doesn't mean right; it
Yeah.
means left. I mean, what does that mean, right?
Well, humans are so yeah, humans are so innovative, right? I feel like our ability to adapt to change. I mean, when something becomes so unattainable for so many people, we
Mm,
focus our attention elsewhere to make our needs get met, right? And so that's like the adaptation to the current
mm,
circumstances. And so like, you know, if enough people, right, don't have money, don't have their basic needs met, right, all of these systems, I mean, yeah, it
it's
could
not going to look
look a
good.
couple of different ways. But I think too, I mean, I maybe on the other side of it, it becomes a more
Mm,
functional system, a more peaceful place. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I
now we're
like it.
getting into like some
Yeah.
revelational things, but I know I'm
Okay, let's go.
curious. I
Sorry,
have another question
we
for
got off
you.
topic here,
Like,
but I think it's a fun conversation, right?
no, 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 no. I didn't even plan this one, but it came to mind as we were talking about
Hmm.
AI, and I'm curious. I know you did a Coursera
Yeah.
course on machine language, and I'm doing I'm doing one for my program coming up, but I'm curious, like, what suggestions might you
Mm,
have in terms of like prompting and like how do you what have you found to be like the most effective way to leverage the AI technology that we
mm,
currently have? Like, is there because I think a lot of people like who are just entering the space, right, are don't maybe recognize like how
mm,
incredibly powerful the tool
mm,
is and how to utilize it to the fullest capacity. And so I'm curious, based on
mm.
what you've learned by this widely offered education and then also experience, in terms of the prompts and the machine language itself.
Yeah,
Do you
well,
have any
so the
insight on
course I
that?
took was a prompt engineering course. It was my first, and it was basically what kind of questions you can ask ChatGPT to get results. Um, I would say that
Mm-hmm.
there's so much you can do with it. It's really hard to pinpoint it down. One of the ways I used it is I use it for like what I would call like ideation. So brainstorming essentially. For me, it's just like
Yeah.
it's like a person to bounce ideas off of because
Yeah.
but yeah, so like instead of let's say people are busy and you want to bounce ideas off of somebody, you can do that. I use it also as kind of like a subject matter expert on stuff, and again back to bouncing ideas off of. But like one of the challenges that I've run into with project management and within that kind of project management circle is that everybody's busy all the time, and some people have time to work with you, and some people don't. And so my job, like as a learning development, is to interface with subject matter experts, and to sometimes it's on like a proprietary information, so it's only internally. Sometimes it's external information that they just happen to be a subject matter expert on. But I basically interview them, find out what's important, what are the learning objectives, how do you communicate this to people who don't know this information. And I find that these subject matter experts are really,
Right.
really busy. And so what I am able to do now is like I can bounce ideas off of ChatGPT, and I can get some basic like I could bring a better product to the subject matter experts, and kind of eliminate some of those first levels of like information gathering and things, and be like, hey, this is what I've got. Check this for me and let me know what's what do I need to edit this? Like, is this objective need to move here? What makes logical sense? Things like that. So that's one way you can use it. But I would say another thing,
Mhm.
like, and this is more for the advanced user, is explore the plugins. There are plugins that are being used in ChatGPT that are crazy. And some of them, like, for example, a PDF, there's this PDF tool,
Yeah, like
right?
yeah.
So what you can do is and it's like, I forget what it's called. It's like anyway, most in education, like most of the journal articles you download are PDFs. And that information is typically behind some kind of
Mhm.
paywall or something. So like when ChatGPT is scraping, it doesn't necessarily have access to this information. But with this tool, with this plugin, I can upload a PDF and now it knows it. And so then I can ask questions on articles about it. I can be like, I can give me a bibliography on this article, summarize this article. So I can literally digest hundreds of articles in a day if I wanted to, and I don't even have to necessarily read them. And then once I've done that, I can take that information and be like, okay,
Right.
so now take all that information and write me a paper. Tell
Now,
me what you learned from these 100 articles I just gave you. And you can start, I mean, it's just crazy. So that's just one plugin. There's other
mhm.
plugins that allow you to interface with other
Right.
AI tools, like Midjourney is a is an image creating tool that you can use on Discord. It's really cool. But you can actually, there's a plugin to where you can type in a
Mhm.
picture and it'd be like, I want a photorealistic thing of this XYZ, and it'll give you like a prompt that then you can put into Midjourney and create a better product there. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you want to do? Like, I
Mhm.
think you're only limited by your imagination at this point. Try it
Yeah,
all. Try to break the machine. Try to do it,
right.
see what you can do. Repeat it over and over again. Try your own personal experiments. And that's where we're at right now.
Right.
We're in the experimentation.
Right.
We're in the Wild West, really.
Yeah,
We're in the Wild
totally.
West and we don't even know it.
It's so cool. I think as this continues to evolve, just I mean, because you and I have an understanding of Moore's law, and how things are doubling pretty quickly in terms of speed and like reach accessibility. I think that it definitely needs to be like a multi
Mm,
episode conversation between the two of us, and continuing to have this conversation as new things emerge, as new technologies are refined and even discovered. I think you made a really good point about where we were in like the 1920s and 30s, and then like flat fast forward for like I don't know a couple decades, and
mm-hmm,
here we are like launching into space. And I mean, I think now we have the ability to
mm-hmm,
launch into space in virtual reality. So this is like a whole new door, and I think it's really cool to be
mm-hmm.
walking alongside you as we continue to learn more about AI and these new technologies. And I really want to just say thank you so much for taking time today to talk to me about this, because it's super fascinating, and I
Awesome.
can't
Yeah,
wait
I
to have more
enjoyed
to
this. I
share
loved
about
it.
it.
It's good stuff. Hopefully, the people that watch this can relate and understand this as well, and kind of it vibes with them. But
Yeah.
great talking with you. Thank you so much.
Mm. Oh, yeah. Thank you. And for those of you who will be tuning in next week, I am gonna have my partner, Morgan Simpson. We are launching a series called Fire Realty on first time home buying. And so we're gonna be talking about that YouTube series, and we've got some really great stuff to cover and share. And so please tune in next Wednesday at 10 a.m. and we'll see you then.